Western International Sunday Market in West London, located between Southall and Hayes Town. This market runs on Sundays from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. It was jam-packed. There is a parking lot on site, but we had used the Costco parking, assuming there wasn't a parking lot. But actually, when we got closer, we realized that there was plenty of parking available. So at the entrance of the market, you got these grocery stores that seem to be selling in bulk. So various items from across the world, a lot from the Indian subcontinent, but from other parts of the world as well. A lot of these like bulk buy toilet rolls, similar to what you get on TikTok. You know, these bulk buy toilet rolls with kitchen rolls and blue rolls that you can buy on TikTok. Similar items here, and also pretty similar prices as well. Seen a lot of people leaving these supermarkets with bulk quantities of lentils, spices, lots of Indian spices and Indian groceries. And then as you pass the supermarket, you start to come across some vegetable stalls and also like fruit stalls where you could buy strawberries and so on. As you could see, most of the clientele are of varying shades of brown. Vast majority are presumed to be from the Indian subcontinent, Indians, Pakistanis, and so on, and Nepalis as well. But the shop or stall holders, they varied from Indian to Caribbean to English people as well, probably what appeared to be travelers, you know, Irish travelers, or also known as gypsies. Hardly, as you can see so far, and you'll continue to see, hardly any white English people except for those stall holders. At the strawberry stall, at least, there was an white English stall holder. So here you got some vapes on special there. Now, disposable vapes are going to be banned shortly, within days. So these are clearance items, people getting rid of their stock so much cheaper. Here you got perfumes here, one of the few white English stall holders selling perfumes for like £3 each. Now I did see some ethnically white European people, but to be honest, this is among the customers. But to be honest, they seemed more Eastern European to me. If you know London, this is no surprise. Southall is a heavily Indian populated area. It's probably has the highest percentage of Indians in any area in the whole of the United Kingdom. So here's another English stall holder. So while the clientele is mostly, as I say, varying shades of brown, including whether it's from Indians to Pakistanis to Somalis, certainly there are English people profiteering from the market as well, so making a livelihood from the market. So you got clothes, you've got shoes, you got some items that are fakes as well. Even though in the UK they tend to be more strict on fake items, there definitely were many fake items in this market. It won't be as widespread as you'd see in markets abroad, like in Thailand or other parts of Asia, because in the UK you expect the authorities, are much more strict. But there were still fake items around. So it was easy enough to find fake items. Quality wise, quality was questionable. Quality of, like, I wouldn't buy a fake branded item here, but if I'm over across the world in Thailand, the quality of the fakes is so good on some occasions that you may even say, okay, yeah, that looks good, that even looks better than the original, so I'll go for that. But here, not the case. So we got some fabric. You don't get that often. That's a very ethnic, let's say, Indian Pakistani thing, where you go and buy fabric by the meter and then go and get a dressmaker to put those dresses together. Luggage seemed cheap. Quality, they looked fine, but £10 for a little hand luggage, £20 for a larger luggage seemed cheap. Some second-hand items as well. Now the big question, why are we not seeing white English people in this market? So the answer is in the location. The market is located between Southall and Hayes. And to be precise, the answer is more related to the area Southall. Southall has the highest percentage of Indians in the United Kingdom. So Southall, Indians, the main waves of Indians and Pakistanis occurred around 1950 onwards. So remember, partition occurred in the late 1940s, partition of India and Pakistan into independent nations. So independence of the Indian subcontinent from the British Empire happened in the late 1940s. So by 1950, people suddenly didn't give up their link to London. Remember, they were subjects, and their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents were subjects of Her Majesty, of the British Empire for generations. And suddenly you become independent, you think you suddenly gonna cut off that link to London, which was your capital. No, it's not so easy. So naturally, people didn't go to France, they didn't go to Spain, or they didn't go to other countries. They came to Britain, the country that colonized them, and they had a natural affinity with. Remember, Indians fought in both world wars as well. And then it's related to the World War as well, this particular area, Southall. There was a British soldier, former soldier or officer in the British Army, an English guy, a white guy. I'm sure the racists of today would curse him for doing this. But anyway, he served with Sikh soldiers in the British Empire. And Sikh, just if anyone doesn't know, Sikh is a separate religion. It's not Muslim, it's not Hindu. Punjabis can be Sikh, Muslim, Hindu. But in Southall, the majority of Punjabis are Sikh. And the religious majority there in Southall is Sikh. So anyway, this British Army officer owned a rubber factory. And he met up with one of his former comrades in arms, a former Sikh soldier. And then he decided, hey, he knows these guys' work ethic. So he said, why don't you come and work for me in my rubber factory? And then he goes and works at the rubber factory, not far from Southall. And then he invites some of his other friends, other former British Army veterans, Sikh British Army veterans, Punjabi British Army veterans. So they go and all work for this rubber factory. Some of these immigrants lived a bit outside, lived in East London. Others settled in Southall, and then Southall became the more natural place to settle because the rubber factory was actually closer to Southall, whereas East London is actually quite far. It's a bit of a travel away. And at the time, there was, a lot of racism in the UK. Skinheads were beating people up, were killing people. And even in Southall, it was happening. But now in Southall, when you had a few more Punjabis settling there, people naturally feel safe, surrounded by some of their own. They were still a very small minority, but at least there were some others, who looked the same, who shared the same culture. And so this is the process. Then more and more people come and say, okay, yeah, we know someone there. Where are we going to settle? We're going to settle in Southall. And then they continued to settle in Southall. And this Indian population started to grow and grow. So that's like from 1950 to what it is today. And then a lot of English people in the beginning were okay with it. A lot of people were not happy with it. As we said, they were skinheads. So, there were white English people who were beating up Asian youth, even in Southall, but even more so in other areas where there were even less Indians. So obviously there were a lot of white English people who were unhappy with it. But remember, this was both legal immigration and illegal immigration. Legal immigration, Britain came out of World War. Britain needed people to build the country, to work for the country. Now, Indians had settled in all different parts of the United Kingdom. But at the time, we had this problem of the skinheads. Skinheads were these gangs that would attack non white people, brutally beat up people, kill people as well. So, naturally, when you have one group of Indians in a certain area, another group, a new group, when it comes, it tends to feel more secure in an area where there is already an Indian presence. So slowly, bit by bit, that Indian presence would grow and grow and grow. Even in Southall itself, believe it or not. Today, if you look at Southall, it's so Indian, or even, majority populated by people of varying shades of brown, including more recent arrivals like the Somalis. But Southall, when these Indians came in, even though there were a few more Indians here than in other areas, they still faced skinheads in Southall. There was still a murder of a Sikh Punjabi guy in Southall that galvanized people. They still faced racism, whether it be at work, whether it be on the streets. But for some reason, they continued to settle in Southall. And it became more of a safe haven. Even facing these problems, imagine if they were in another area where there were absolutely no Indians or so few Indians that you'd have absolutely no safety. So, in a way, racism pushed Indians to settle in Southall. They pushed them to stay together, to build communities in Southall. And here we are. So some food options in the market as well. Again, no surprise, Indian food. So you got your biryanis, you got your curries. Personally, I would say prices not great. When you come to a market, you expect to have good food, but at also decent prices, well, cheaper than takeaways in the surrounding areas. Now, okay, lamb biryani, £7, that's pretty standard. But chicken biryani was about £6. In most shops around, chicken biryani in a takeaway, not a restaurant, is going to be £3 to £4. So it wasn't cheap. So here we got some of these fake football t-shirts, Al Nasser Club. So, it's got the Adidas logo. Nowhere is it written out, in the letters Adidas, but it's got the logo. So I'm not sure if this is legitimate to sell. Actually, it's got an Umbro label, but then it's got the Adidas logo. Okay, I'm confused. I'm confused. But yeah, this is wasn't quality wasn't on the standard that you'd find abroad. So Al Nasser probably has become more popular because I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe Ronaldo plays for that Saudi club now. More football shirts over there as well. But again, quality not on the standard of what you'll get abroad. So some Afro Caribbean people as well, or at least people who look like they offer an Afro Caribbean background. There you can see the Sikh turbans there. These men are Sikh. And the thing is, even though there's now lots of Pakistanis as well in Southall, and you can see in this market lots of hijabs. So most would be maybe Indian Muslim and Pakistani Muslims wearing the hijab. Some Somalis as well, but they don't bring the problems of the Indian subcontinent to Southall. Southall, surprising, hasn't had like religious riots. And you think, oh, it's the UK, why should they have? But no, I mean, they have been in Leicester, which is another city. There were riots uh, between, I think, Indians and people of Pakistani origin. But to be fair, it's not an indictment of Leicester as a city. The people who were involved from the Indian side in Leicester were new arrivals who were very brainwashed by the current Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi's propaganda. So they were like fresh arrivals who sparked the riots in Leicester between Indians and Pakistanis, or shall you say Muslims and Hindus. But it wasn't like local Hindus. But you would think if it was going to happen anywhere, it would happen in Southall because of just such a large proportion of Indians. But no, it didn't happen. And people get on, people do business with each other, people share these markets and spaces and food stalls and all that without having any trouble with each other. And yes, again, we go back to why we're not seeing white faces. So I sort of answered that in terms of why there's such a high proportion of Indians and other brown people also got attracted to Southall for the same reasons the Indians like sort of congregated and continued to just populate Southall. I mean, the others will also feel a bit safe around people of color. But then a lot of English moved out. They couldn't live with the Indians. Now, Indians are not, at least in the United Kingdom, they're not violent people. Even like crime at schools, stabbings between school kids and so on, doesn't really happen in areas with large proportions of Indians. They tend to be just like hardworking, get on with it, study hard. In fact, like Southall, the population was at its peak was 70% Punjabi. Now that's dropped to just over 50% Punjabi. One of the reasons is because those Punjabis who settled in Southall, they educated their children moved up, the economic ladder, and improved themselves, and then moved out of Southall to other areas that are considered to be better areas, other areas of London. So Indians are not like difficult people in the UK. They like in many ways model citizens. But a lot of English white people from the late 1950s onwards, when the numbers of Indians rose, they couldn't live with the Indians. So they moved out. They moved to areas where there was more of their own kind. It was their choice, their decision. But what I'm trying to say is, Indians didn't force them out. Yes, Indians were populating these areas more and more when houses were available. They were renting houses, they were renting flats, they were renting rooms, and so on. If you, as another race, even if you're the original people of the country, if you don't feel comfortable around seeing people of color who are not harassing you, but just living their cultural lives the way they used to, and if you don't want to see it and you want to have make sure your neighbor is always a white and move out, I mean, is that the fault of the minority? No, I don't think so. More food here, food stall. There's a few food stalls, not many, but enough. You could make this an afternoon or let's say rather a morning out, do a little bit of shopping, have lunch here. Lots of toy stalls. And some of the stuff quite reasonably priced. If you want to get something cheap and cheerful, lots of the stuff remind me of toys you see in Saudi Arabia. The stuff that they they stock for people who come for pilgrimage. Little affordable toys that they can take back home for their kids. So similar stuff I seen in this market. Prices of clothes, yeah, you can find some cheap and cheerful items. But for me, with stores like TK Maxx that stock branded items at like reduced prices, sometimes the prices of the branded items are, just a little bit more than a fake item. So personally, especially if I'm in the UK, I'd rather just stick with buying clothes from TK Maxx. So we didn't get anything here, but some of the caps were good. Caps, hats. I will do a video of Southall town, the Southall High Street, the this because this is a market at the end of the day. This is a market, a Sunday market. So I'll do a video at some point of Southall, and you can have a look at that. And I'm sure you'll be surprised again at the stores. It won't look like England because of just so many Indian themed and let's say South Asian or Asian themed shops and so on when we do the video of Southall. Yeah, we got more food, Chinese food. I'm assuming it's halal because I can see hijabi people buying from there. I hope so. Um, there's a burger grill. The burger grill didn't look halal. Yeah. Oh, this is selling registration plates. So even when we do the video in the future of Southall, when you'll notice the high street not having many sort of native English British shops. The thing is, people left because they couldn't live with this growing minority. So this was by choice, So I wouldn't say it's a lot of people will look at it as, oh, this is proof of mass migration and look how our towns changed. Well, no one forced people to leave. No one forced people to feel so uncomfortable with having a brown neighbor that you thought, what, toss this. I'm moving to an area where there's more of my kind. So the fact how Southall became a majority Indian and South Asian or minority community area is because people settled here. They were forced to stay together because of the threats from skinheads. Also, people felt more comfortable in areas where they can find groceries that they require for their cooking, their cultural practices, and then also Southall became vast majority Indian, South Asian, is because a lot of white British people couldn't live with minorities and left. It's sad. I would actually think, it would be nice if they were. When I walk around Southall, I sometimes think, yes, imagine, because there are English, British people still living in Southall, very small numbers, white English people. Now, if I was them, I'd really like certain stores that I'm used to from my time, because I see some elderly people. Very few, but there are. And I think to myself, I would understand from their point of view that the high streets have changed. They can't find their normal fish and chip shop that they were used to, or their normal pub or something. I understand from their point of view. But it's not the fault of the immigrants, it's the fault of other English people who there was this white flight. People just left the area, and then they were the ones who held on for whatever the reason and stayed behind and became this minority. And then business is business. If there's such a small group of certain people, then businesses for those people, would be less profitable. So whether it's a plain traditional English fish and chip shop or a certain type of pub, if there's less punters, less customers, those shops are not going to exist anymore. More toys here, not priced. That always worries me. You have to ask the price, and so I always wonder whether they're giving people different prices. So that was something I didn't like about this market. That especially with the toys, you have to ask the prices. Clothes were well marked. Prices of the clothes were well marked. To be honest, I was still, and I am still in Asia mode. At the beginning of this video, you might have seen there was a little sugarcane juice area where the guy was put the fresh sugarcane through the machine and make the sugarcane juice that way. It was £6, and I was recently in Asia, and that was like less than £2, so like 3 times the price. Just reminds you of how expensive the United Kingdom is and how expensive I'm sure many other Western countries are. They're killing us. This is now towards the end of the video, but so we bought a few items, and I'll show it later on towards the end of the video. We didn't go crazy. In fact, I mean, there wasn't stuff to go crazy for. Yeah, you got some bedding, you got curtains, you got lots available. But we buy what we need. Obviously, keep the kids happy. So you get something for each kid, but you don't have to go crazy. So some white, probably, I'm not sure, English or Eastern European people here. I'm sure there's people who come here just for a cultural experience. Few and far between, probably. Or let's see if they know about it. But I'm sure, yeah, I know a lot of people go to like Southall, to the high streets, to the, not specifically like a market like this, but to the proper high street where you got shops and food shops. A lot of white English people go over there because remember, curry is very popular among English people. Curry, in fact, chicken tikka masala is like the national dish of the UK. It's got origins in the UK as well. It's an Asian, South Asian meal, but it's got origins in the UK. It was modified here. So these are fans, USB fans, USB charged fans. So this was something we got for one of the kids. This was £5. So big or small, the size was £5. Not sure how long it'll last, but for UK, if you're leaving a market and you got your kid something for £5, you're lucky. If you didn't spend more than that on one of the kids, you're lucky.
What battery it takes?
So like you could say some unique stuff. Like this was pretty unique. I'm sure you'll find it on eBay, but I didn't come across it myself. It's not something we'd search for anyway. But when we saw it, then immediately my son said, "Oh, that's something I could use in class when it gets hot." So you get some cheerful stuff here, some cheap and cheerful items in this market.
Thank you, brother.
So I'll show you what we bought once I get to the car. What stuff that we needed.
Dad, look at this.
So
Dad, look what I found. Pops, can I
1 liter of olive oil. It's for cooking really. And that was a big £7.50. So in store that's probably going to be about £12.50. So not bad. We needed olive oil and we got it for a few pounds cheaper. But always, if you're outside, you go to a market, you can end up buying something for the kids. So you never win when you leave a market. So Mr. Faris got a handheld fan that he wants to use at school. It's rechargeable. I reckon the charge will probably not be that long. So I don't know if he needs to maybe get a power bank eventually if he wants to use it at school to charge it. But will the teachers complain about that, having a power bank and a little fan? And I reckon it's going to distract the other kids. But yeah, that was £5 as well. Well, that was £5. It looks well made. So that satisfied Faris's craving to have something because we went to the market. I don't think that's a loss at all. It's something he'll use. Let's see how long it lasts. Maybe one of the bad buys, LOL surprise doll with its LOL surprise doll for £5. But I still reckon it's cheaper than what it'd be in store. How much do you think?
It looks a bit fake.
No, it's not fake. It's a real thing. They're not gonna bother to fake a LOL surprise doll. The doll looks good quality as well.
It'll be like £10.
Yeah, I think in the store it'll at least be
It's not worth
$7.99 or so. But so this was a £5. Yeah. So that was more just to keep the little one happy. But yeah, I also don't think it's a value buy. But we all mess up. So something else. Let me show you the next thing. So not so sure about this. We got 2 of these perfumes. How many mils? 100 mils. 100 ml amber oud vanilla tobacco blend. They say France on it, but it's actually Dubai. I think Dubai. Okay, so you've got an American flag there, but it's I think, well, at least the other one, the first one, is from Dubai. So these were 2 for £10, 100 ml each. This here. So these I'm not sure if it was a good buy or not. Still wait and see. So far the testers, I can't smell them on me anymore. So I'm just thinking maybe this wasn't worth it. But anyway, as long as it doesn't give us any skin irritation, we'll just use more of it. We'll bath in it and finish it. But yeah, might be alright, who knows. So yeah, that's the things we got. We got the olive oil, was cheaper than usual. The fan, £5. That's okay, let's see how long it lasts. The LOL surprise doll, cheaper than in store, but still nothing great. And then these perfumes, that is a big if. I'm not sure. Wait and see. It's a big wait and see to see how long it'll last. But I suspect we'll use it anyway.